You think the Middle Ages were brutal? Think again, because out of every punishment Europe ever invented, from beheadings to burnings, from dungeons to chains, France created something far more theatrical, something so iconic, so sadistically engineered, that it became the symbol of public suffering, a machine that didn't just kill you, it made your death a performance. The French breaking wheel. The irony? The same country known today for wine, museums, love stories, perfumes, and philosophy, once perfected one of the most mathematically designed torture rituals in human history. A punishment so elaborate that the executioner needed training, real training, to perform it correctly. To the crowds, it was justice. To the state, it was deterrence. To history, it was proof that human creativity doesn't always lead to beauty. Sometimes, it leads to horror. The breaking wheel didn't originate as a French invention. Early Germanic tribes used crude forms of it: a cartwheel, a hammer, and a condemned man. Simple, primitive. But France took the idea and elevated it. By the 13th century, French legal writers began describing the wheel as the ultimate punishment for ultimate crimes. Murderers, bandits, traitors, deserters, all could be broken. But the wheel wasn't merely chosen to kill them, it was chosen to display them. That's the key. France understood the psychological power of a public stage. Executions weren't just about guilt. They were about messaging. The wheel became the state's megaphone, louder than any priest, louder than any law. And when a punishment becomes a message, society begins to accept cruelty as necessity. This is where the story of the wheel truly begins. Not in violence, but in fear. And fear always escalates. Before the breaking even began, the condemned was taken to a raised wooden platform, sometimes in the city square, sometimes outside the gates where thousands gathered. Vendors sold food. Children were lifted onto shoulders. Priests offered last-minute salvation. And the executioner, he inspected his tools like a musician tuning his instrument. This wasn't chaos. It was carefully orchestrated theater. Crowds loved the wheel because it promised something no other punishment did. Time. Time to watch. Time to judge. Time to enjoy the slow unraveling of the human form without calling it entertainment. Imagine modern society gathering for a slow, painful spectacle under the justification of morality. Hard to picture. Check social media. We still watch humiliation, downfall, public shaming, just digitized, sanitized, and monetized. The wheel was simply the medieval version of viral content. But what happened on the stage? That's where the ritual becomes chilling. To the untrained eye, the breaking wheel looked like chaos. But French executioners followed a strict, ordered choreography, a legally approved sequence of blows. Each impact had meaning. Each angle was intentional. Each break sent a message. The limbs were targeted in a pattern that symbolized not just punishment, but deconstruction, the slow dismantling of the physical self. Executioners were craftsmen. Some wrote manuals. Some passed techniques to their sons, and the best were known across the country. Think about that. A profession where your reputation depended on how well you could manage suffering in front of an audience. We glorify athletes, actors, and musicians today. Medieval France glorified executioners. But even craftsmen need tools, and the wheel was more sophisticated than you think. The wheel wasn't just a wheel. It was a design masterpiece of cruelty. Large, wooden, reinforced, rimless so bodies could bend through the gaps. Strong enough to be lifted, rotated, displayed. Sometimes it was heated, sometimes the edges were studded. Human ingenuity created cathedrals, clocks, and art, and it also created this. There is something disturbingly human about designing an object whose only purpose is to turn suffering into a public viewing experience. And yet, the wheel grew in popularity. Why? Because it wasn't just a method, it was a metaphor. Criminals weren't killed, they were broken. Society loved metaphors, still does. But France added another twist, a ritualistic choice disguised as mercy. The coup de grâce, the mercy blow, was meant to end the ordeal, but in practice it became a moral test. If the criminal showed remorse, if the priest vouched for him, if the crowd felt pity, only then might the executioner end it quickly. But the crowd often didn't pity. They wanted the full spectacle, the whole show they came for. So mercy became just another performance, a privilege, not a right. Imagine a society where your suffering depends not on justice, not on the court, but on public opinion. Are we really that different today? One viral clip, one trending hashtag, and society decides your fate. The medieval wheel didn't die. It just changed platforms. Think the horror ended with the last breath? Not even close. Afterward, the wheel with the condemned still on it was hoisted high onto a pole and displayed for days or weeks. It marked roadsides, gates, bridges, a grim billboard of authority. Travelers passing by France's towns would see the silhouettes, a wheel, a body, a warning. The display served a purpose: fear. Fear polices behavior better than any law, and fear, once normalized, becomes tradition. As centuries passed, stories about famous breakings became folklore. Children heard names of criminals and executioners the same way we hear superheroes and villains today. The wheel created celebrities. It also created myths. One tale told of a man who survived for 3 days, another of a criminal so defiant that crowds begged for more punishment. Reality blurred with legend. But these myths reveal something uncomfortable. People didn't just accept cruelty, they romanticized it. Humans love stories, sometimes even horrifying ones. But France's intellectuals weren't silent. By the 17th and 18th centuries, France became a nursery of Enlightenment thinkers. Voltaire, Montesquieu, Beccaria, voices rising against brutality. They argued the wheel didn't prevent crime. It perpetuated violence. Public cruelty numbs empathy. Spectacle dulls morality. Terror births rebellion. They were right. But France was slow to change. Why? Because cruelty had become culture, and culture never dies quietly. Still, ideas have power. And soon, France would meet a machine that rendered the wheel obsolete. When the French Revolution erupted, the new republic demanded 2 things: equality, efficiency, and the guillotine offered both. No performance, no choreography, no prolonged suffering. Just a swift, universal punishment, same for nobles, same for peasants. Ironically, a device designed to be humane ended up killing far more people in far less time. But the wheel? It became a relic, an outdated symbol of aristocratic cruelty. Cruelty didn't disappear. It merely changed form. The breaking wheel eventually vanished from French law. Its wooden frame decayed. Its platforms rotted, its name faded into textbooks. But the psychology behind it that's still here, the need for spectacle, the hunger for public punishment, the rush to judge, the thrill of watching downfall. We've replaced the town square with screens. We've replaced crowds with comment sections. We've replaced the wheel with reputation, shame, cancellation, exposure. The medieval French wheel was a masterpiece, not because it broke bones, but because it revealed how eagerly society consumes suffering when it feels righteous. Human cruelty is creative, and creativity always finds new platforms. The wheel is gone, but the audience never left. In the end, the breaking wheel was less a tool and more a mirror, showing France and us exactly who we become when fear merges with power. And that's the terrifying truth. The wheel wasn't the monster. The monster was the crowd that watched it turn.